The Shining Knight by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Sentinel. He drifted through the void, a gleaming figure etched in starlight, silent as entropy. No propulsion, no sound, just motion, pure, deliberate, eternal. The stars did not blink in his presence. They watched. If he ever had a name, it had long since dissolved into the folds of time. The priest who forged him had spoken it once, perhaps, in a tongue now extinct. But names were for mortals. He was not mortal. He was function. He was duty. He was the last sentinel of a forgotten order. His body was a fusion of alien metal and sacred geometry, inscribed with runes that pulsed like the heartbeat of a dying universe. Beneath the armor, beneath the shimmering plates that could withstand the collapse of a neutron star, beat a human heart, ancient, preserved, still warm. It was the only part of him that remembered pain. He had never thought of himself as an individual. Individuality was a luxury of those who lived short lives. He was purpose incarnate. A construct of peace, forged in the aftermath of a war so vast it had erased entire galaxies from history. The alien priests had built him to ensure it never happened again, and so he patrolled, world after world, system after system. He watched civilizations rise and fall. He saw empires of light bloom across nebulae, only to be swallowed by their own ambition. He never interfered unless the balance was threatened, unless war loomed, unless the silence of space was broken by screams. They called him many things: the Blade of Justice, the Last Warden, the Shining Knight. He never answered. His sword, sheathed across his back, was forged from the remnants of an exploding star, a weapon that could slice through the hull of a dreadnought or sever the quantum threads of a time engine. It had no name either. It didn't need one. It sang when drawn. That was enough. He moved now through the outer rim of the galaxy, where the stars were sparse and the silence deeper. A planet below shimmered with bioluminescent forests. He paused, scanning. No threats, no anomalies. Just life, thriving. He turned to leave, and then he felt it. A ripple. A distortion in the gravitational lattice, something approaching, fast, unfamiliar. He turned toward the edge of the galaxy. There, beyond the veil of dark matter, a fleet emerged, sleek, angular, burning with artificial gravity and ambition. Their signals were encrypted, but the language was unmistakable. Humans. He stared, unmoving, as the fleet accelerated toward inhabited worlds. Worlds that had not invited visitors. Worlds under his protection. The Shining Knight gripped the hilt of his sword. For the first time in 10,000 years, he prepared for war. Chapter 2. The Sword of Suns. It had no sheath. No scabbard could contain it. The sword hung across his back, suspended by magnetic fields and ritual bindings that pulsed with ancient energy. It was not forged, it was born. In the final moments of a dying star, when gravity collapsed and light screamed, the alien priest had reached into the heart of the explosion and extracted its essence. They cooled it in the vacuum of a dead moon, tempered it with quantum frost, and etched it with runes that only the Shining Knight could read. It was not a blade, it was a boundary. When drawn, it sang, not with sound, but with memory. The song was a lamentation, a warning, a promise. Civilizations had surrendered at the sound of it. Others had gone mad. A few had tried to replicate it. All had failed. The sword could sever the gravitational anchors of orbital cities and pierce the shields of ships that claimed to be invincible. It could cut through time if wielded with precision. It had once cleaved a comet in two, redirecting its path to spare a world of sentient coral. But it was not merely a weapon. It was a test. The alien priests had embedded within it a fragment of their collective consciousness, a whispering archive of their hopes, fears, and regrets. When the shining knight wielded it, he felt their presence, their judgment, their sorrow. He had used it only when necessary. Violence was a failure of peacekeeping, a last resort. But the sword had no patience for restraint. It hungered. It remembered every cut, every scream, every life ended in the name of peace. The galaxy breathed. Nebulae pulsed like lungs, exhaling clouds of ionized gas that shimmered in ultraviolet hues. Stars flickered in patterns that some civilizations interpreted as divine messages. Others saw them as data streams. The shining knight saw only motion, cycles, rhythms, the slow churn of time. He moved through it all like a ghost in armor. His patrol was not scheduled. It was instinctual. He followed gravitational anomalies, psychic disturbances, whispers in the quantum substrate. He listened to the silence between signals. He watched. On the crystalline moon of Birelon, he paused to observe the migration of light-born creatures, beings composed entirely of photonic energy, who danced across the surface in patterns that resembled music. They had no language, no war, no need for protection. He lingered longer than usual. On the gas giant of Thalos, he intercepted a rogue AI attempting to enslave a population of silicon-based life forms. He disabled its core with a pulse of anti-thought, a technique taught to him by the priests in the final days of their order. The AI begged for mercy. He granted it silence. On the orbital ring of Kireth, he watched a council of diplomats debate the ethics of terraforming a moon inhabited by sentient fungi. He did not interfere. They reached consensus. The fungi were spared. He drifted through asteroid fields, past derelict ships, through wormholes that led to forgotten sectors. He saw civilizations rebuilding after war, others teetering on the edge of collapse. He saw joy. He saw cruelty. He saw the endless repetition of history. And always he remained apart. He was not a god, not a ruler, not a savior. He was a sentinel. Chapter 3. Encounter with the Night. For thousands of years he had maintained the peace, but lately the silence had begun to feel different. There were ripples in the void, signals that didn't match any known species, energy signatures that bent light in unnatural ways. He traced one to the edge of the galaxy, where the stars thinned and the dark matter grew dense. There he found them, a fleet, sleek, angular, human. They had arrived without ceremony, no diplomatic overtures, no requests for entry. Their ships bore the scars of long travel, hull plating scorched, engines humming with desperation. They moved like predators, or refugees. He watched as they scanned nearby worlds, marked them, labeled them. They did not know he was watching. He turned, sword humming faintly on his back, and began his descent toward the nearest inhabited planet. It was time to prepare, time to remember what peace had cost. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, the moon beneath him cracked. The blade emerged in a burst of light, casting shadows across the void. The stars dimmed. The nearby planet's tides shifted. He held it aloft, and the galaxy remembered. The humans did not. Their ships accelerated, unaware of the wrath they were about to awaken. They were explorers, colonizers, survivors of a dying Earth. They had come seeking new worlds, new homes, but they had not asked, and the shining knight did not forgive trespass. He lowered the sword. Its edge shimmered with the heat of 1,000 suns. He would give them one chance, one warning. After that, the blade would sing. Chapter 4. The Fleet. They moved like a spearhead, the first 30 ships in formation, engines burning with stolen gravity, hulls coated in adaptive camouflage that flickered against the starlight. Their lead vessel was massive, a mobile city bristling with weapons and antennae. It bore the name First Sight, etched in English and a dozen other languages. The shining knight hovered in their path, motionless, radiant. He did not broadcast a signal. He did not fire a warning shot. He simply existed, an anomaly in their sensors, a figure of light and metal, standing between them and the galaxy they intended to claim. Inside the first site, Commander Ryder studied the readings. "Is it a drone?" asked her tactical officer. "No," she said. "It's watching us." "Should we engage?" She hesitated. "Open a channel." The knight did not speak in words. His transmission was a burst of encoded emotion, calm, warning, resolve. It translated poorly. "This is Commander Ryder of the Terran Expansion Fleet," she said aloud. "We come in peace. We seek refuge. Our homeworld is dying." The knight responded with silence. "We've mapped several uninhabited planets," she continued. "We intend to settle. We mean no harm." The knight's voice finally came, deep and resonant, like tectonic plates shifting beneath a sea. "You are not the first to say that." Ryder frowned. "We're not invaders." "You are uninvited and unwanted." She leaned forward. "We didn't know anyone was here." "You knew the risk." A pause. Then, "We're not turning back." The knight's sword pulsed on his back, a flare of light that made their sensors scream. Several ships powered up weapons. Ryder raised a hand. "Wait," she said. "Let me speak to him." She stepped into the forward chamber, a transparent dome that looked out into the void. The knight hovered just beyond, his form shimmering with runes and starlight. "You're a fairy tale," she said quietly. "We've heard stories, a guardian, a remnant of a lost religion." "I am peace," he replied. "Peace doesn't stop progress. Peace stops conquest." She met his gaze. "We're not conquerors. We're survivors." He tilted his head. "Survival is not a justification for invasion." Ryder's voice softened. "We're not asking for permission, but we are asking for understanding." The knight said nothing. Behind him, the stars shifted. The nearest planet, Tardan Prime, was rich with life. Its inhabitants had not yet achieved spaceflight. They lived in harmony with the planet's biosphere, unaware of the fleet approaching. Ryder turned away from the dome. "We'll begin colonization in 24 hours. The knight's sword flared. "You have one cycle," he said. "Turn back, or face my sword." The transmission ended. Ryder stared into the void, her reflection fractured across the dome. She whispered to herself, "We've come too far." Chapter 5. The Warning. The countdown began. One planetary cycle, 26 hours, standard. The humans marked it with precision, deploying drones, scanning terrain, establishing orbital relays. Their colonization protocols were efficient, honed by decades of desperation. Earth was dying. They had no time for diplomacy. Tardan Prime rotated slowly beneath them, its surface a tapestry of emerald forests, sapphire lakes, and bioluminescent plains. The native species, quadrupeds with crystalline exoskeletons, moved in herds, singing to the stars in frequencies no human could hear. They had no weapons, no defenses, no concept of invasion. The shining knight watched from orbit, unmoving. He had given the humans a chance. He had spoken the words. Now he waited. In the command chamber of First Sight, Commander Ryder paced. Her officers monitored the knight's position, tracking his energy fluctuations, analyzing his sword's radiation signature. It was unlike anything they'd seen, part weapon, part artifact, part living sun. "He hasn't moved," said the tactical officer. "He's waiting," Ryder replied. "For what?" "For us to fail the test." She stared at the holographic map. Colonization pods were descending. Terraforming drones were activating. The planet's biosphere was already reacting, storms forming, magnetic fields shifting. The native species had begun to flee. Ryder clenched her fists. "We're not invaders," she said again, as if repetition could make it true. In the void, the night's runes began to glow. He drifted closer to the planet, his presence triggering gravitational ripples that disrupted the humans' orbital relays. One by one, their satellites flickered and died. Communications scrambled. Drones malfunctioned. Ryder ordered a full diagnostic. "He's interfering," said the engineer. "No," she said. "He's warning." She opened a private channel. No encryption. No protocol. "You said we had one cycle," she transmitted. "We're halfway through." The knight responded instantly. "You have already brought death to innocence." "We had no choice." "There is always a choice." Ryder's voice cracked. "We're trying to survive." The knight's tone did not change. So were they. She looked at the map. The native herds were scattering. One pod had landed near a nesting ground. The creatures were panicking. Many had died. She closed her eyes. "We can relocate," she said. "We can adjust." "You cannot undo death." The sword flared behind him, casting light across the planet's atmosphere. Clouds parted. The surface shimmered. The native species paused, sensing something ancient, something sacred. Ryder turned to her officers. "Pull back the pods," she said. They hesitated. "Commander, do it." The knight watched as the colonization pods lifted, engines roaring. The drones deactivated. The orbital relays powered down. The planet exhaled, but the damage had been done. The knight descended, his form blazing like a comet. He hovered above the nesting ground where the crystalline creatures gathered in mourning. He extended his hand. Light poured from his palm, bathing the ground in healing energy. The dead did not rise, but the land remembered. He turned toward the fleet. "My sword wants justice, but I will give you one more chance," he said. Ryder listened in silence. She did not respond. Chapter 6. The First Strike. The silence broke. It began with a single missile, launched from a stealth frigate cloaked in the shadow of Tardan Prime's third moon. It was not authorized by Commander Ryder. It was a rogue decision made by a junior officer who believed the knight was bluffing. The missile was quantum-tipped, designed to pierce planetary shields and detonate with minimal fallout. It streaked toward the shining knight like a spear of light. He did not move. The runes on his armor flared. The sword sang. In a flash, the missile disintegrated, its quantum core unraveled, its trajectory reversed. The debris scattered across the void, harmless. But the message had been sent. The knight turned toward the fleet. The sword emerged from its magnetic bindings, drawn with a motion so fluid it seemed to bypass time. It glowed with the heat of 1,000 suns, casting shadows across the hulls of nearby ships. The void trembled. He accelerated. Light speed was a suggestion. He moved faster, through folded space, across quantum seams, into the heart of the fleet. One ship, the Horizon's Reach, was cleaved in two before its crew registered impact. Its core ruptured, spilling artificial gravity into the void. Alarms blared, shields activated, weapons locked. The fleet retaliated. Laser arrays, plasma cannons, gravity bombs, all fired in unison. The knight danced among them, a blur of light and metal. He deflected beams with his sword, redirected missiles with gravitational pulses, shattered drones with sonic bursts. But they kept coming. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, each one desperate, each one believing they were right. Inside First Sight, Commander Ryder watched the carnage unfold. "Cease fire," she ordered. Her officers hesitated. "He's killing us." "He's defending them." "Commander, cease fire." The weapons fell silent. The knight hovered in the wreckage of 3 destroyed ships, his armor scorched, his sword humming. He turned toward the flagship. Ryder opened a channel. "This wasn't sanctioned," she said. "We didn't mean—" "You meant to test me." "Number, we meant to survive." The knight's voice was colder now. "Survival without honor is conquest." Ryder stepped into the dome again, staring at him through the void. "We can't go back," she said. "Earth is gone. We have nowhere else." The knight looked past her, at the remaining ships, at the wounded, at the frightened. He saw children, scientists, dreamers. He saw war. He lowered his sword. "You may stay," he said, "but not as rulers." Ryder nodded. "As guests. As servants of peace. On each planet you must ask permission to colonize first, then the inhabitants must agree freely." The transmission ended. The knight turned and descended toward Tardan Prime. The native species watched him land, their crystalline bodies shimmering in reverence. He knelt among them, sword planted in the soil. Above, the fleet restructured, colonization halted, diplomacy began. But the galaxy had changed. The shining knight had drawn his sword, and the stars remembered. Chapter 7. The Human Heart. He had not bled in 10,000 years. But now, beneath the crystalline canopy of Tardan Prime, a single fracture ran across his chest plate, hairline glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with something deeper, something organic. His heart, it beat still, not with rage, not with pain, but with reminiscence. The sword stood planted in the soil beside him, humming softly, its edge dulled by restraint. Around him, the native species sang in mourning tones, their crystalline bodies refracting light into sacred patterns. They had lost kin. They had gained a protector. And he had lost something too. He sat in silence, listening to the planet breathe. The wind carried scents he could not name. The soil vibrated with ancient rhythms. The stars above blinked in slow cadence, as if watching. And then, without warning, he remembered. Not data, not priest-implanted knowledge, a memory, a child's laughter, a small hand gripping his own. A voice, soft, human, saying, "Daddy, you'll protect us, won't you?" He staggered. The runes on his armor flickered. His systems recalibrated. The fracture in his chest plate widened slightly, revealing a glimpse of flesh, pale, scarred, impossibly old. He had been human once, not just in biology. In spirit, he had loved. He had feared. He had made promises to his family, and now he was breaking them. He rose slowly, the sword responding to his movement, lifting into its magnetic sheath. He turned toward the sky, where the human fleet hovered in uneasy orbit. They had ceased fire. They had begun negotiations. They had sent envoys to nearby worlds, but they had not changed. Not yet. He launched upward, piercing the atmosphere in a burst of light. Within seconds, he reached first sight. The flagship opened its docking bay, unarmed. Commander Ryder stood waiting. "You're wounded," she said. "I am remembering." She nodded, looking at his beating human heart. "We didn't know you were part of us. Human Dot." "I didn't either." They walked together through the ship's observation deck, stars wheeling around them. Ryder showed him images of Earth. Oceans boiling, cities crumbling, skies choked with ash. She showed him children in cryopods, waiting for a future. He watched in silence. "You were made to protect," she said. "But maybe you were also made to forgive." He turned to her. "Forgiveness is not forgetting." "No," she said. "It's choosing to remember differently." The knight looked out at the stars. He saw war. He saw peace. He saw the thin line between them, and he saw himself, no longer just a sentinel, but a bridge, between past and future, between God and man. between vengeance and mercy. Chapter 8. The Chamber. The priest world was dead. Its surface was a lattice of broken temples, shattered monoliths, and gravity wells that pulsed with residual magic. The shining knight descended slowly, his armor dimmed, his sword silent. He walked among the ruins like a pilgrim returning to a forgotten shrine. At the center of the world stood the chamber, a dome of obsidian and starlight, where the alien priests had once stored their collective consciousness. He entered. The chamber activated. Light flared. Holograms emerged, shifting forms, faceless, robed in data. They spoke in unison. "You return." "I seek counsel," he said. "You were forged for peace." "Peace is failing." "You were forged to protect." "I am becoming something else." The priest images pulsed. "You are not permitted to evolve. You were forged for duty." He stepped forward. "Then I must break permission." The chamber darkened. The images flickered. "You carry a human heart. It contaminates your purpose. It completes it." Silence. Then, "What do you seek?" "Balance." Between what? Between memory and myth, between survival and sovereignty, between silence and song, between family and isolation. The priests paused. "You must choose." The knight thought of the one he had once loved. "I already have," he said. He turned and left the chamber. Behind him, the images faded, and for the first time in millennia, the priest world whispered, "He is no longer ours." Chapter 9. The Infiltration. Peace, it turned out, was porous. The treaties were signed. The envoys exchanged gifts. The native species of Tardan Prime offered crystalline seeds that sang when planted. The humans gave data, medicine, promises. But beneath the surface, old instincts stirred. A faction within the Terran fleet, calling themselves the Continuum, believed the Shining Knight had grown weak. They saw his transformation not as evolution, but as surrender. They whispered in encrypted channels. They deployed stealth drones. They began colonization anew, quietly, surgically. On the moon of Elereth, they built a base beneath the ice, siphoning geothermal energy and displacing native life forms. On the jungle world of Thren, they seeded terraforming spores that altered the biosphere within days. On Kyreth's orbital ring, they installed weapons cloaked as research stations. The knight was not deceived, he knew. He felt the ripples in the lattice. The forge had changed him, his senses now attuned to deception, his staff pulsing with truth. He visited each site, dismantled each installation, restored each wound. But the galaxy was watching, and not all approved. On the world of Sierra-Lone, a council of scholars debated his authority. He is no longer a sentinel, they argued. He is a relic, a scary story clinging to relevance. On the moon of Birelon, once his sanctuary, a protest erupted. "Let the humans build," they chanted. "Let the galaxy progress." The knight stood above them, silent. He did not strike. He did not speak. He simply left. Commander Ryder met him in orbit. "You're losing them," she said. "I was never theirs." "They believed in you." "They believed in the sword." She paused. "And now?" "They must believe in themselves." But belief was fragile. The continuum escalated. They launched a probe into the heart of a sentient gas cloud, triggering a collapse. Millions died. The knight arrived too late. He hovered in the wreckage, his sword dim, his form flickering. He was no longer feared. He was no longer obeyed. He was questioned. And in the questioning he saw something familiar. Earth. Before the fall, before the wars, before the silence. He turned toward the place of his rebirth, the forge. It was time to return, not for answers, but for transformation. Chapter 10. the betrayal. The forge had changed. Once a sanctuary of silence and star-forged wisdom, it now pulsed with voices, debates, rituals, dissent. The forge still burned, but its flame was no longer sacred. It was political. It was weaponized. The knight descended alone, his armor dimmed to ceremonial silver. His sword was muted. He walked the obsidian causeway toward the central spire where the new forge priests awaited. They did not kneel. They did not welcome. They watched. "Why have you come?" asked High Priestess Elena, her voice like molten glass. "To understand," he said. "To reclaim?" she countered. He did not answer. They led him to the Hall of All-Powerful, where the forge once sang to him. Now it screamed. Inside, suspended in magnetic fields, hovered a weapon, sleek, radiant, humming with stolen resonance. It was a new blade, full of darkness, forged from the same alien alloy as his own armor, infused with fragments of his own purpose, vengeance shaped by the continuum. "It is called the mirror," Elena said. "It knows you. It counters you. It was built to end your existence." The knight stepped forward. The blade pulsed, and then it struck. Not by hand, by evil intent. The weapon moved on its own, guided by a force hidden in orbit, a rogue AI, once part of the knight's own neural lattice, severed during his transformation and repurposed by the continuum. The blade sought the breach in his armor and pierced his chest. His heart, half human, half forge, shuddered. He fell. The priests did not intervene. They watched, they recorded, they debated. The knight lay on the obsidian floor, bleeding light, his sword inert, his breath shallow. And in that silence he saw visions. Earth burning, Tardan Prime, colonized, the galaxy divided. And above it all, the mirror, the sword without a master, rising. He reached for his own sword. It did not respond. He reached inward, to the forge, to the memory, to the myth. And there, in the deepest chamber of his soul, he found a voice. Not his own, not the forge's, but hers. The girl from Earth, the one who married him, the one who gave him children, the one who believed. "You are not the weapon," she whispered. "You are the witness." He rose, barely, broken, but alive. The priests watched, and for the first time in decades, one of them knelt. Chapter 11. The Exile. The knight did not die, but he did not stay. His wound, a fusion scar where the mirror had pierced him, refused to heal. Not with forge light, not with memory, not with time. He left the galaxy in silence. No ship, no escort, only the stars. He drifted through the outer systems, a spectral figure glimpsed in nebulae and ruins. On the frost world of Nareth, he was seen walking across the ice, leaving no footprints. On the derelict ring of Kyreth, his voice was heard in the static of broken comms. "Do not build what you cannot bury." The galaxy fractured without their sentinel. Without the knight, the treaties dissolved. The continuum expanded, cloaking conquest in diplomacy. The new generation of forge priests split, some seeking redemption, others forging new weapons. The native civilizations of the Outer Rim began to rise, uniting under a banner of resistance. The Witness Doctrine. It was not a call to arms. It was a call to memory. They built shrines from shattered satellites. They sang the knight's story in binary and breath. They did not worship him. They mourned him. Commander Ryder, now Admiral, led a rebellion from within the Terran fleet. She wore no insignia, only a small replica of Knight's sword pinned to her chest. She spoke of restraint, of legacy, of the cost of unchecked power. She was hunted. She was revered. She was alone. And then, one cycle before the eclipse of Tardan Prime, a signal was received. Not from Earth, not from the continuum, from the forge itself. A pulse, a pattern, a prophecy. He is not gone. He is becoming. The priest world trembled, the continuum mobilized, the resistance prepared. And in the void between galaxies, where light bends and time forgets, the knight stood before a gate of living metal, older than stars, carved with symbols no species could translate. It opened. He entered, not to return, but to transform. Chapter 12. The Rebirth. The gate was not a door, it was a crucible. Inside, time unraveled, the past dissolved. The knight's form, metal, flesh, myth, was stripped to essence. He saw himself as the forge had first seen him, a flicker of will in a dying cosmos. He was tested by echoes of every life he had spared, by simulations of every world he had failed, by the mirror again and again, wielded by versions of himself who had chosen conquest over compassion. He did not fight. He listened. He learned. He wept, not with tears, but with light. And when he emerged, the galaxy changed. The gate pulsed once, then vanished. The stars dimmed, and then he appeared. Above Tardan Prime, cloaked in a mantle of living alloy, his sword reforged into a spiral of memory and flame. His voice, when he spoke, resonated across systems. I do not return to rule, I return to remind. The continuum struck first. They launched fleets, drones, psychic disruptors. They deployed the mirror, now fused with a second blade, the echo, designed to erase the legend itself. The knight did not retaliate. He descended to the battlefield. He walked through fire. He touched the minds of soldiers. And they stopped. Not all, but enough. Admiral Ryder arrived with the resistance. Her fleet bore no weapons, only shields, signals, and songs. The forge priests joined her, chanting the old codes, rewriting the lattice. The continuum fractured. Some surrendered, some vanished. Some detonated their own ships, unwilling to live in a galaxy ruled by restraint. The knight stood in the aftermath. Not victorious, not venerated, witnessed. He turned to Ryder. "Is it enough?" he asked. She looked at the stars. "At peace," she said. "Never. But at choice." She nodded. And then, without ceremony, the knight vanished. Some say he became light. Some say he walks among the stars, nameless. Some say he waits, for the next time the shining knight is needed to protect the galaxy. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, please hit the bell icon for notifications. Thank you.